So the next stage of actually building out links to our money site is the second tier of the structure that we discussed. We talked about tier 1 in the last video, and that's the sites that point directly from one site to your site. You have to keep them contextual, you have to keep them high value, good quality content, and make sure that the association between that website and your website is a very positive one in Google's eyes. So you're varying your anchor text, you're mixing it up, you're making sure that it's not too over SEO'd, so to speak. Keep that percentage of outbound linking on your tier 1 to be relatively low, but what we need to do now is we need to make that tier 1 link super powerful. So we need to juice it up, give it a Red Bull, give it some steroids, whatever you want to say, and that is where the second tier comes in, and this is why it's so important to think about this. So why build a second tier? So let's just say we didn't build a second tier. Now the weight of tier 1 totally relies on the value of tier 1 links alone. Now remember, in the previous video we talked about creating tier 1 links both manually by building out properties, which we're going to discuss now, but also going out and getting those tier 1 links, right? So if I go out and I get a tier 1 link from a really credible source and it's a great website and it's a high PR, right, that can be a great link for me. And I don't necessarily need to try to beef it up. But if I go out and I buy a domain that maybe it's like a PR2, it's not a great link yet, I can make it into a great link. I can develop that link into a PR4 by actually adding value to it. Now the other thing is that a tier 1 link that I've gone out and I've earned can drop in value over time. I have no control over that. If that link's indexed, that's great, but if it gets de-indexed or if it drops out of Google, I'll lose the value from that link over time. So I need to make sure that tier 1 links that I go out and get stay credible, which is why I tend to favor actually building these out myself. Now, if I do build them out to myself, then I'm going to focus on making sure that they stick around for a long time, and I do that by actually building out a second tier of links above those, and those are my tier 2 links. The purpose of these tier 2 links are literally links at tier 2 that point to my tier 1 site. Keep in mind, I am not pointing my tier 2 site to my homepage. That is not the purpose of this. Tier 2 links are literally there to build up the value of tier 1. Tier 2 links also make it easy for me to actually make sure that these links at tier 1 get indexed and stay indexed. Now these links, which is good, can be automated and they're easier to build. So they shelter myself a little bit to the degree from Google updates. So it makes sure that if I am doing something at tier 2 that is frowned upon to some extent by Google, then what it'll do, it'll make sure that that tier 2 link gets penalized and it doesn't hit my money site at any point in time. Tier 2 links, as I said, are easier to acquire. So these fall into the category of things like bot links. I buy them from high-ranking websites, non-brokers. I get guest posts. I find links. These are harder links to get, but I can also get topical directories, free and paid, blog comments, social mentions, topic website mentions, but I can actually, again, do like I did previously and build these out. So tier 2 links are just as accessible as tier 1 links. I can actually go out, build the same types of properties. I can build blogs, I can build websites, and I use the same kind of rules that I followed for my tier 1 links. Separate the IPs, separate the domains, separate the name servers, separate the hosts. Whenever possible, disconnect your entire network from itself. That means do not use SEO hosting. Now what I'm doing here is that I'm making my network appear as unique as possible. I'm gathering more unique domain names, more unique IP addresses, pointing in down my funnel to build the overall value of it. Now when I do this, I'm building out good tier 2 platforms. Now these don't necessarily have to be like the greatest websites on the planet, but these have to be pretty decent websites. They have to be pretty readable. I can start using spun content at tier 2 because I'm not necessarily as worried because it's not directly linking to my website. So if they get hit with duplicate content at some point in time and they fall out, then big deal. Because the purpose of tier 2 is a numbers game to help build value for tier 1. So again, if my tier 1 link is worth 2 points, if I build tier 2 links, maybe I can get it to 5 points. Maybe I can get it to 10 points. And this is how you drive the page rank of your tier 1 links up to like a 2, a 4, maybe even a 6, right? This is where the value starts to drive in. So as I build tier 2, it makes tier 1 so much more valuable, passing the link juice down. So as tier 1 gets more valuable, that pushes more weight down to my main website, which actually gets it put into a position to rank better. Similar link sources, different content. Again, some automation may come into play here, but what I'm doing now is I'm getting myself into a position where I can start to leverage my assets better. I can spin articles. I can repurpose content. I'm caring a little bit less about the type of value that the content itself is adding, and I'm focusing more on numbers and less on readability. I want to maintain that variance in anchor text again, and I want to shoot for contextual links again. So again, if I'm controlling my network, then what I'm doing is I'm controlling the experience. I'm funneling it in such a way that it's optimal for what Google is looking for. Not necessarily what Google's looking for today, but what Google is looking for overall in content. In context links, very low outbound link ratio, very clean profile, varying domains, varying IPs, establishing some credibility with the start, if whenever possible, buying in domains that actually have some established age to them at tier 2, and funneling it to one funnels to my main money site. This is exactly what's going to work with this. And if I do all of this, then what I'm going to end up seeing is that my website rank is going to gradually creep up the more I add to tier 1 and the more I bolster tier 1 with tier 2. Again, just like we did in Tier 1, track all Tier 2 link acquisitions in Excel. This is going to become super important for your Tier 3 link acquisitions, because as you develop new Tier 3 link acquisitions, this is where the weight really starts to push. So once you start to track all your ones in Excel, develop a second column that says Tier 2, track all of those links in, and then we'll go back to that in Tier 3 as we begin to build up that second layer.